Hello, everyone. Let's listen to a bedtime story about a historical figure, Benjamin Franklin, 1706 to 1790, to help us drift off more easily. Sleep, Chapter 1. A curious boy in Boston on a crisp January morning in the year 1706. A baby boy was born in a modest wooden house on Milk Street in Boston. His parents named him Benjamin, and though they couldn't have guessed it at the time, this little boy would one day change the world. As Benjamin Franklin grew into a clever and lively child, Boston was a bustling town filled with narrow cobblestone streets, creaky wooden piers, and the smell of salt from the harbor. Benjamin loved every corner of this busy place. Even as a very young boy, he was forever chasing after new discoveries, inspecting shells washed up on the beach, studying the rigging of ships, and listening with bright-eyed wonder to the stories sailors told of faraway lands. More than anything, though, Benjamin loved to read. His father, Josiah Franklin, was a candle and soap maker. Josiah was a hard-working, practical man with strong hands and a kind face, and he wanted Benjamin to learn a good trade. Benjamin had many brothers and sisters, 16 in all, so their home was never quiet, and everyone had to pitch in. But Benjamin's parents saw a special light in him and decided that this boy who loved words and ideas might make a good printer someday. Every evening, after chores were done, Benjamin would huddle close to the fire with a precious book balanced on his knee. Some nights it was a volume of history, other nights a book of poems or a scientific treatise. He would read until the fire grew low, captivated by worlds far beyond Boston. Though his hands might have smelled of soap and tallow, his heart soared with every story he read. As he grew, Benjamin began to ask big questions. Why did a candle's flame dance the way it did? Why did some metals conduct heat faster than others? Could a kite really touch the clouds? His father would smile and do his best to answer, but sometimes Benjamin's questions were too difficult even for him. That didn't discourage Benjamin one bit. Instead, he would set out to find the answers himself by reading more, by carefully observing the world around him, and by testing his own ideas with small experiments. And that is where we leave him tonight, a bright-eyed boy full of questions, perched by the window and looking up at the stars, wondering what mysteries they held, and feeling a warm sense of adventure stirring in his soul. Chapter 2. A Printer's Apprentice. As Benjamin grew a little older, his hands grew more skillful and his mind more determined. Life in Boston was busy and filled with opportunity for those who weren't afraid of hard work, and Benjamin was no exception. By the time he was 12 years old, Benjamin had left the comfort of his family's home to begin working as an apprentice at a printing shop owned by his older brother, James. This was not an easy job. Every day, Benjamin was up before dawn, his hands stained with ink, setting tiny metal letters into place one by one so that words could be printed neatly onto blank sheets of paper. Though the work was tiring, Benjamin felt a thrill every time. He held a freshly printed newspaper. Here, words had power. They could make people think, make people laugh, make people want to change the world. And as he read each article and essay that rolled off the press, Benjamin felt his own curiosity grow deeper. Sometimes, late at night, after the shop was cleaned and the presses had gone silent, Benjamin would sneak one of the printed sheets up to his tiny attic room. By lantern light, he would read every page over and over until the candle burned low. His brother didn't pay him to read, only to work, so these stolen moments were his own secret treasure. James was strict with Benjamin, often expecting too much from him and rarely offering praise. But Benjamin was clever. Knowing that James would never let him write for the newspaper, Benjamin decided to disguise himself. Under a secret pen name, Silence Doggett, he wrote letters full of sharp observations and humor, then slipped them under the shop door after dark When those letters were published in the newspaper, everyone in town wondered who this mysterious silence dogged might be. Even James was delighted with the letters, never realizing that his own apprentice, his younger brother Benjamin, was the witty author. When Benjamin finally confessed, James was furious at first, but deep inside, he must have felt proud. 2. For in the space of those nighttime writings, Benjamin had shown that his clever mind and his skill with words were truly special. That boy who had once been a dreamy child on the docks was becoming someone who could shape thoughts with the written word. Boston was just one town, but already Benjamin had set his sights on a much wider world, and so, with ink-stained hands and a bright spark in his heart, Benjamin went to sleep that night with thoughts swirling like stars. Tomorrow was another day to read, to learn, and to dream. And tonight, as you listen, may you too rest peacefully, knowing that even the smallest beginnings can grow into something great. Chapter 3, Journey to Philadelphia. By the time Benjamin was 17, Boston no longer felt big enough for him. The printing shop was familiar and comfortable, but his dreams stretched far beyond those narrow wooden walls. He longed to explore new cities, to meet new people, and to make his own path in the world. So one day, with a few coins tucked into his pocket and only the clothes on his back, Benjamin left his brother's shop and his family behind. He set out toward the great city of Philadelphia. The journey was long and often difficult. Roads were muddy, and rain sometimes soaked him to the bone. But Benjamin hardly noticed, because every mile brought him closer to the unknown adventures he longed for. When Benjamin finally reached New York City after days of travel, he was tired and hungry, but also proud of what he had accomplished so far. In New York, he searched for work as a printer, knocking on shop doors and offering his skills. Yet printers there had little work to give. With few options, Benjamin pressed onward to Philadelphia. The trip took him across rivers and down winding roads until at last he stepped into the bustling streets of a new city. Philadelphia was bright and lively, with marketplaces full of chatter and shop windows glinting in the sun. Ships bobbed at the docks, bringing people and stories from faraway places. Benjamin felt his heart quicken. Here was a place where a clever, determined young man might truly make his mark. That first morning in Philadelphia, Benjamin had hardly a coin left. Hungry and tired, he stopped at a bakery and spent almost all of his money on 3 small loaves of bread. Balancing them under his arms, he wandered along Market Street, nibbling on a loaf as he walked, and just then, at that very moment, a young woman named Deborah Reed happened to look out her window. She saw Benjamin, tired, with disheveled clothes and a few crusts of bread, and she smiled, perhaps saying that this was someone who would one day do great things. Benjamin had no way of knowing that this chance glance would one day lead to a deep and lasting friendship. That night, as he found a simple place to sleep, Benjamin felt a warm glow of pride. The road had been long and uncertain, but every choice he had made to leave Boston to follow his dreams had been his own. And as the lanterns flickered in Philadelphia's windows, Benjamin lay his head down with a hopeful heart, eager to discover what tomorrow might bring. Chapter 4, Building a Life and a Legacy. When Benjamin Franklin awoke to his first morning in Philadelphia, the world felt full of promise. The city's streets were alive with the sound of carts and conversation, and every corner held new possibilities. Still, Benjamin had to find work. With his natural skill as a printer and his honest, determined nature, he soon earned a job at a local print shop. The work was familiar: typesetting, arranging letters, mixing ink, and Benjamin did it carefully and well. But deep inside, he hoped for more than just earning a small wage. Each evening, after the day's work was done, Benjamin would take long walks through the city. The sky above him glowed orange and pink at sunset, and as he walked, his thoughts wandered. Could he one day own his own printing shop? Could he publish his own newspaper, one that carried ideas to every home in Philadelphia? Before long, Benjamin met people who shared his dreams of learning and progress. Together, they formed a small club that met in a cozy tavern where they discussed books, politics, science, and the world around them. They called this group the Junto. Benjamin loved these gatherings. In the light of a crackling fire, they would exchange thoughts and debate new ideas. The more Benjamin learned, the more confident he became. Before long, he had saved enough money to open his own printing business, the first big step toward making his dreams real. And oh, what a shop it was. He filled it with shelves of paper, pots of ink, and wooden cases of tiny metal type. The scented ink and freshly printed sheets became a familiar and comforting perfume. Every morning, Benjamin threw open the shop doors to the street and welcomed customers who needed pamphlets, advertisements, and newspapers. And then came Poor Richard's Almanac, a little yearly booklet full of clever sayings, useful advice, and Benjamin's special touch of humor. Readers loved it. Copies flew off the shelves, and Benjamin began to gain a reputation as a sharp thinker and witty writer who had a kind heart and an eye for the practical. As his business grew, so did his involvement in the city. Benjamin helped establish one of America's first public libraries so that everyone could read and learn. He supported better street lighting to make the city safer, and he even helped organize a volunteer fire company because to Benjamin, improving the community was every bit as important as improving himself. By the time Benjamin lay down to sleep each night, his hands might have been tired from a day's work, and his ink-stained sleeves might have been smudged, but his spirit felt light and full of purpose. Philadelphia had truly become his home, and he was weaving himself into its story, one printed page and one good deed at a time. Chapter 5, A Scientific Spark. As Benjamin Franklin's printing business flourished, and his life in Philadelphia became more comfortable, his curious mind began to wander into new territories. Books and ink had always been his passion, but there was one thing that captivated him even more: the mysteries of nature. Benjamin was especially fascinated by electricity. In those days, people hardly understood what lightning really was. Thunderstorms were seen as wild and unpredictable, and nobody dared imagine that humans could ever harness such a powerful force. But Benjamin was different. One rainy evening, as thunder rumbled across the rooftops of Philadelphia and blue sparks danced at the tips of lightning rods, Benjamin stood at his window and thought, what if I could catch that electricity? What if I could tame it and understand it? And so, little by little, he began to plan an experiment that most people would never have dared to attempt. First, Benjamin built a simple wooden kite, stretching a silk handkerchief across its frame. To the top of the kite, he tied a long iron wire. To the bottom of the string, he attached a key, so that electricity might travel down if the kite caught the energy of the storm. That summer day in 1752, as the dark clouds gathered and rain began to fall, Benjamin and his son, William, walked into a meadow together. The wind tugged at their clothes and whistled past their ears. Lightning flashed in the distance. With his heart racing, Benjamin carefully sent the kite into the turbulent sky. Thunder cracked overhead like a giant's roar. Then at last, he felt a small tingling through the string, a strange, invisible energy. When Benjamin moved his hand near the key at the end of the string, a tiny spark leapt into the air. That single tiny spark told him that lightning was a kind of electricity, and that electricity could be captured, studied, and perhaps one day put to good use. He hurried home, thoughts swirling like the storm clouds, already imagining what could come next. Lightning rods to protect houses and barns, new machines powered by electricity, new inventions to light up the world. And so that night, As the rain drummed gently against the window pane and the smell of wet grass filled the air, Benjamin fell asleep with a sense of wonder in his heart. He had proven something nobody else had dared to try, and as his eyes grew heavy and his thoughts floated like clouds across a quiet sky, Benjamin dreamed of a future that was brighter, more powerful, and more full of possibility than ever before. Chapter 6. Inventing for a better world. After his electrifying kite experiment, Benjamin Franklin was forever changed. The thrill of discovery, that flash of understanding when a tiny spark leapt from the key, stayed with him, like a friendly fire glowing in his heart. And Benjamin did not stop there. He began to dream up new ways to make life better and safer for everyone around him. One of his first great inventions was the lightning rod. It was a simple idea, a metal rod fixed to the top of a building, with a wire leading down into the ground, but it saved countless homes and barns from being struck by lightning. People in Philadelphia were grateful for this clever device. They no longer had to fear that a summer thunderstorm might burn their houses to the ground. And Benjamin kept inventing. He thought of a new kind of stove that could heat rooms better and waste less wood. This became known as the Franklin stove, a sturdy iron stove that glowed warmly and filled rooms with gentle heat during the cold Pennsylvania winters. He created bifocal glasses too, so that people who struggled to see close up and far away could look through one pair of lenses and see clearly in both directions. And all the while, Benjamin remained a caring neighbor and a busy public servant. Together with his friends, he started Philadelphia's first fire company, the Union Fire Company, so that brave volunteers could protect the city. He also founded a public library so that everyone, rich and poor alike, could read and grow wiser. And when he noticed that streets were dark and dangerous at night, he suggested putting up street lamps to light the way. Through all these efforts, Benjamin showed that one curious, thoughtful person can make life brighter for an entire community. And each night, as the lamps glowed outside his window and the city rested peacefully under the starry sky, Benjamin himself would settle into his chair with a good book, content that his hands and his mind had been put to good use. And so, as you listen tonight, may you too feel a sense of comfort and purpose. Even the smallest kind of action or clever thought can grow into something wonderful, lighting the way for others, just like the gentle street lamps that glimmer across Benjamin's city. Chapter 7. A Voice for Freedom. As the years passed and Benjamin Franklin's reputation grew, so too did his responsibilities. Philadelphia was becoming one of the most important cities in the American colonies, and Benjamin was often called upon to help settle disputes, write letters, and offer wise counsel. He traveled to other colonies, attended meetings with leaders, and even sailed across the ocean to London as a representative of Pennsylvania. There, in that grand and faraway city, Benjamin worked hard to speak up for his fellow colonists, for their rights, and for fair treatment under British rule. Yet, as time went on, it became clearer to Benjamin and many others that the American colonies needed more freedom. Laws and taxes imposed by faraway leaders in Britain felt unfair and unjust. Benjamin believed that people had a right to speak for themselves and to live without unnecessary burdens. He put his pen to work, writing articles and essays that encouraged his fellow colonists to stand together. Many people listened, for Benjamin wrote with both kindness and conviction. His words had a way of reaching the heart, making readers feel brave enough to dream of a better future. And Benjamin kept inventing in the world of ideas too. When he wasn't writing about the cause of freedom, he was writing up new plans for public schools, libraries, and better roads, imagining how a fair and independent society could care for everyone. He began to meet often with other great thinkers, men like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and George Washington, who would one day lead the fight for independence. Together they spoke of freedom, courage, and the right of every person to shape their own destiny. And so, as Benjamin settled into his chair one quiet evening after a long day of writing and thought, he gazed out the window at a sliver of moon, glowing gently over the rooftops. The world was changing, and Benjamin was helping to guide that change. One careful word at a time. And as the lamp beside him flickered warmly, Benjamin felt his eyes grow heavy, hopeful, determined, and at peace. Chapter 8. The Declaration of Independence. By the summer of 1776, the 13 American colonies had reached a turning point. The desire for freedom had grown into a powerful and unstoppable force. Benjamin Franklin was right at the heart of this historic moment, working alongside other brave leaders in Philadelphia to create a bold, new future. The days were long, and the meetings often ran late into the night. Benjamin joined with Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and other trusted delegates at the Continental Congress. They gathered together in a grand hall with tall windows that let in rays of sunshine and fresh summer breezes. Every voice was heard as they debated what independence would mean, how to declare it, and what rights they wished to protect. Benjamin, though one of the oldest men in the room, listened carefully to every idea. He had seen more of the world than most and understood that change did not come easily. But he also knew that this was a moment to stand for what was right. When the first draft of the Declaration of Independence was written, Benjamin offered his gentle wisdom to improve its words. Even a tiny change, a softer phrase here, a more hopeful tone there, could help the new nation grow strong and united. And so, on the morning of July 4th, 1776, Benjamin joined his fellow delegates in signing the document that would forever change the course of history. The ink was still damp as they set down their names, their hands steady with purpose and their hearts full of hope. Though the struggle for freedom would continue for years to come, Benjamin knew they had taken a brave and necessary first step. And as the meeting hall grew quiet in the late afternoon light, Benjamin allowed himself a tired but satisfied smile. Outside, children ran through the cobbled streets, and the gentle breeze carried the sound of distant church bells. It was as if the world was holding its breath, sensing the birth of something new and wonderful. That night, as Benjamin Franklin lay down to rest, his thoughts were with the future, a future of light and liberty. And under a starry sky that felt brighter than ever before, he closed his eyes, hopeful and at peace. Chapter 9. Elder statesman and philosopher. As the years rolled onward, Benjamin Franklin grew into one of the most respected figures of his time. His hair had silvered and his steps had slowed a bit, but his mind was still as sharp as ever, and his spirit as warm and kind as the morning sun. After the Revolution was won and the United States had declared its independence, Benjamin returned home to Philadelphia, tired, yes, but also satisfied. Throughout the war, he had worked tirelessly in France to secure crucial help for the American cause. His diplomatic skill and good humor won him many friends overseas, and now his name was known and respected across Europe and America alike. Yet, Benjamin never became proud or distant. Even in his old age, he loved to walk through Philadelphia's streets, greeting shopkeepers and children alike. He would stop to listen to people's ideas and encourage their dreams, sharing his gentle advice whenever they asked. And though his body was slowing, Benjamin's hands were never idle. He still enjoyed tinkering with little inventions, improving his bifocal glasses or designing better street lamps. But most of all, he loved to read and write, recording his thoughts and stories so that future generations might learn from them. In these quieter years, Benjamin was often invited to gatherings of statesmen and scholars. They spoke of philosophy, of freedom, of the power of knowledge. Benjamin, who had seen so much of the world, often spoke last, his voice soft but wise, and when he did, Everyone listened, Dot, and as the sun set each evening over the city he had loved and served for so long, Benjamin would settle into his chair with a book or a letter to a faraway friend. Outside, the streets were lit by lanterns, casting a gentle golden glow across the cobblestones. Dot, and in the gentle hush of the evening, Benjamin would reflect on his long life, all that had been learned, all that had been given, and all that was still to be hoped for. Dot, and so, with a deep and contented sigh, he would close his eyes at last, feeling grateful and at peace. Chapter 10. A Gentle Goodnight. The years continued to pass peacefully for Benjamin Franklin, like a slow and steady river carrying him onward. In the spring of 1790, at the remarkable age of 84, Benjamin took his last quiet breaths in his home in Philadelphia, surrounded by the people and the city he had loved and shaped. And though his days had come to an end, the light Benjamin had kindled in the world never truly dimmed. Every invention he had crafted, every article he had written, every kind word he had shared with a neighbor, all of these became part of the legacy he left behind. From the libraries and fire companies he founded to the very electricity we use today, Benjamin's spirit still shines, helping others long after his voice had grown still. And tonight, as the gentle moon rises high above the rooftops and the world settles into its sleepy rhythm, let us remember him with a smile. Imagine him one last time, a boy full of questions, a man full of ideas, and an old sage at peace, drifting into the sweetest of dreams. Dot, and now, my dear listener, may you also feel that same peace and wonder in your own heart. The world is a beautiful, mysterious place, just as Benjamin always believed, and every good thought and every kind dream can help make it better. Dot, so close your eyes. Breathe deeply and feel safe and warm as you drift into sleep. Good night, sleep. Well, thank you for sharing this bedtime journey with me. May your dreams tonight be as bright and hopeful as Benjamin Franklin's, and may you wake up refreshed and inspired. Sweet dreams.